Kenneth, you are on with Jenna and Ethan. What's up, dude?
Hey guys, I'm really super fascinated by a couple of things. One, I wanted to ask you guys, when you talk about a drug, what exactly? I mean, just knocking down definitions. What are you guys referring to?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question.
That is a good question, because sex is a drug in a sense. So it kind of depends on how you define it.
I guess where I was going with this episode, and Jenna, let me know if this lines up. We're talking, like mushrooms, LSD, marijuana, those types of things. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Eric. Love you.
So if I could offer something, so I looked up the definition of drug just because I was curious.
Yeah.
And so the definition that I saw was a substance that has a physiological effect when ingested into the body, which is such a broad definition.
Yes.
I mean, that would apply to food. And when you guys talk about recreational drug use, I think there's so many stigmas attached to that. But I mean, like I think one of you said earlier, I mean, like aspirin's a drug. You know, we don't think of it as being a bad thing if someone takes aspirin to alter their physiological state. But there's all this moral baggage in our society where people are stigmatized and looked down on for, ingesting other substances.
Right. Mushrooms are a food. Now, there's certain kinds that release different chemicals, but
yeah, well, yeah, like I chatted with Ethan about, like, very briefly when he was, flying high on his trip yesterday, and which was wonderful. But it was like, when we're talking about, especially like the reactions that he got from certain friends of his on the right end of the political spectrum, we're talking about plants.
Mm-hmm.
And if people are going to get mad at you for, ingesting a plant, especially people who have like a religious motivation for doing that, I would want to ask them, well, like, who put the plant here for us to have fun with in the first place, according to their worldview,
Right.
Well, how do they compare it to alcohol?
Yeah.
Right. Alcohol, you're actually doing even more to that plant than you're doing to the mushroom or the marijuana.
You talk about like the ethical implications too, and the mental health consequences of taking various drugs. I mean, I don't know if there's another drug that has a more like detrimental effect that we can measure and quantify than alcohol. I mean, even just like drunk driving. It's.
I've had 2 drunk driving accidents.
I'm confused on this.
Were you the driver?
Mm-hmm. Yes, both times. One of the times I should have died. Like, I went over a cement like drain thing, and then somehow backed up and drove into another one.
Oh wow!
I was blacked out drunk the whole time. Like, I don't even remember it. Yeah, I don't drink anymore.
I can't blame you. I've been fortunate in the sense where, like, I don't think my brain allows me to black out. Like, no matter, because when I was 21, I knew how to pound them back and party, but no matter how much I drank, I never quite like lost control or got to a point where my ex says it's because I'm a freak about controlling my mind and I won't let myself relax. But I mean, I guess that makes sense because I am really paranoid over the idea of not being in control of my actions.
I don't know. I'm kind of the same way. And for me, it's the opposite in the sense of my mind is like, holy shit, something bad's going to happen. We're going to protect you. So you're just not going to remember anything. And so there were times where I would be blacked out drunk, and the next day I'd be asking my friends like, oh my God, did I do anything? And they're like, you were drunk? And I'm like, I don't remember anything. So, sorry, Kenneth, please. What do you think?
First of all, I think I speak for everybody when I say that I'm super glad that nothing did happen to you in these accidents. But it's crazy to me that it is like socially acceptable if you want to go out every weekend and get absolutely hammered and alter your psychological and physiological states with alcohol, knock yourself out, have a great time. But if you do the same thing with microdosing with mushrooms, people are much more quick to get very judgy with you.
Yes.
And when we talk about mental health, it's like, if what you're doing doesn't have a detrimental effect on yourself or others, why would it even be anybody else's business at all? Why would anybody feel the need to criticize you or judge you for activities that really have no effect on them?
I think it's the same thing with contraception and all that, sex and marriage, like that has nothing to do with you. But people take things personally. People, I think, at least from my experience, the certain people that I grew up with, they take on the responsibility of others. And so everyone thinks that it is their job to control everyone else around them. And so they think that it is their job to protect them. And since I know nothing about this, all I know is that I've heard bad things or that it is illegal, I'm going to do everything that I can to protect you from it and keep you from it because I think it's bad.
I've never understood why
it's been an interesting experience for me the last few years because I have a job where I work for the government. I can't take any drugs at all, and that's been fine for me. I did some drugs in college and in grad school, but I was never really super. I mean, it was very recreational. I was never super into anything. But it's been interesting to notice that I still will find myself looking for other ways to alter my, physiological and psychological state, whether it's with, food or with gaming or, exercise. I'm out doing stuff. I'm still engaging in activities specifically for the purpose of altering my mental and physical states. I'm just doing it differently.
Right.
And so to me, I don't see any significant ethical difference in trying to change your states with one activity versus another. Ultimately, it's all about brain chemistry anyway. So
I could see how you could be against something like, for example, meth. Like when you're altering your state of mind in a way that you are destroying your brain, like that you're creating holes in your brain. That releases a certain chemical, like when you die, that releases a chemical like what mushrooms does, which is a pleasant feeling. And so it feels good at the time, but you're eating holes in your brain. So that I could see it's just not a good drug, even if you do it recreationally. So I could see how somebody could think that they are all like that, just, not knowing,
Which that brings up an important question, and I don't obviously this would be for another episode, but where is the line when it comes to recreational drugs? Like,
who's it up to?
Everything and just kind of let what happens and focus on education, or do we pick and choose what we allow?
Who decides?
There was a time there was a drug that I tried, and I distinctly remember the first time I tried this drug having the thought, I can see why people ruin their lives with this, because this is such a euphoric feeling, and feeling very fortunate after that moment of clarity to be like, I wonder how many people have the presence of mind in that moment to even realize that. And it made me very wary of wanting to continue, because I was like, I can see this going somewhere that I don't want it to go, and me losing control very, very quickly. But so for me, that's where the line was. It was just being I can't handle this. Maybe other people can, I can't. And to me, that's where, in my own experience, where there was a useful boundary between recreational and potentially changing my life in a way I didn't want to happen.
Do you think that there is some kind of hard line that we could say, this is how much people can do, or this is what drugs people can do? Do you think that that's something that the law should be deciding? Just in your opinion, I know I happen to know that you have some background with this.
Yeah. Well, to me, it should all be about outcomes. I mean, if somebody can do a drug and not then go out and harm anybody else, I don't think that we have any business legislating their activity. I mean, you can take any number of perfectly legal substances and harm yourself, and no one cares at all. I mean, we're not out here, legislating ice cream and being like, listen, you can only buy 2 pints, because if you take more than that, your cholesterol is going to go up. We don't think of it in that way.
Right.
So if somebody wants to, I mean, even with something like meth, if somebody wants to take something that's going to destroy their brain and, you know, may have extreme detrimental effects to them, I don't see how that's really ethically any different than somebody going nuts with the Big Macs, you know. So,
well, because the Big Macs attacks your arteries inside of your body, and the meth not only attacks your brain, but it also affects the way that you act, and you become a danger to others.
And here's where it becomes a slippery slope for me. Let's say, for example, we legalize like heroin or meth. You know, we say, hey, as long as you're not harming anybody, it's okay. Well, heroin and meth can typically lead to an addiction, which in turn you will end up eventually quite possibly harming people, be stealing or doing anything to be able to supply your own habit. So how do we find the line in that area?
Right. See, that to me sounds like a bit of a stretch, but that's to me.
If heroin was legalized today, Ethan, would you be like, sweet, I'm gonna go out and buy some heroin to try it?
No.
I would. I really don't think it would change too many people's behavior. I think legalizing these substances would unburden the justice system and the prison system. But in terms of actually influencing people's behavior and how they relate to these substances, I really don't see it changing that much. It's not like it's really difficult to get your hands on drugs if you really want to anyway.
Well, I've heard that there's these drug clinics that they've done in Canada, and I could be wrong, but this is something I've heard on the news. And so if somebody knows otherwise, please let us know. But I've heard that they have these clinics where people can go to if they're addicted and they need to shoot up and they need a safe place to go rather than a back alley or a bar bathroom. They have a place to go where if they do OD, then there is a nurse nearby that can help protect them. And what it does is it helps people kind of realize what they're doing. And I think what I've heard is that there's been like next to no deaths, next to no overdoses.
Really?
And that it's helpful, that it helps people. That's what I've heard.
Well, when we talk about like, in my research and experience, you're absolutely right, Jenna. And we have facilities here in Chicago where there's like needle exchanges and stuff where people can come and try to, there's an understanding that they're doing illegal and potentially harmful things, but we're going to try to minimize as many risks to these human beings as we can, and still see their humanity and try to, just not leave them floating out there where they're on the fringes of society.
And society loves to give up.
When we're talking about mental health and drugs, I mean, so much of this intersection where when you have these substances and they're criminalized and then people are addicted to them, I feel like we're creating layers on layers of bad mental health outcomes for people when not only are you struggling with a substance issue, but you're also struggling with shame and potential criminal consequences and a whole bunch of other things that are going to just compound all of the negative factors in your life. So, I mean, to me, decriminalizing drugs across the board seems like a very smart and really like a humanist idea at the end of the day.
I agree. Although unfortunately, I think it's going to be a really it'll be a long time before we get to that point, particularly with the Christian right in our way.
Well, I'm going to be writing in Ethan Micheal on my ballot for president this year, and I think everyone else should do the same. There's a clear path forward here, and I think that's it.
Never mind. Instead, put your friendly neighborhood atheist on the ballot.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love talking to you guys. I got to run, but I'll keep listening to the show.
All right.
Thank you for calling. We'll talk to you later.
Have a good one, man.
Take care.
Bye.
We still have a couple more callers, though. You said, right?
Yeah, we still have one more caller.
One more caller.